B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J, K.
My name is Stephen Ferlauto. My education was in graphic design, and my career has been as an art director. My passion over the past 40 years has been the study of the divine in geometry and the Roman alphabet. During the Renaissance, there was a concerted effort to draw the Roman alphabet using a compass and straight edge. In this lecture, I propose that the drive to develop such a structure was theologically based. Historians today have wrongly deduced that the purpose of these geometric alphabets were to provide instructional templates for the trades. It's illogical that artists of such renown would spend the time to repeat the work of their peers for such a commonplace purpose. Admittedly, the beauty of our alphabet deserves great attention, but there was more to the investigation of these letterforms than aesthetics. The attribution to this painting of Fra Luca Pacioli and an unknown young man is being challenged. See Leonardo da Vinci and the Pacioli Code by Jerzy Kolski. Strong arguments are being made that Leonardo da Vinci painted the picture. Pacioli was the private tutor of Leonardo da Vinci. Although some say the student in the painting is Durer, I've flipped the lone self-portrait of young da Vinci to compare it to the student standing behind Pacioli. The student expresses a strange, secretive knowing in his outward gaze and posture, a knowing not unlike the expression of the Mona Lisa. What secret knowledge is he hiding? Luca Pacioli and Leonardo da Vinci published The Divine Proportion in 1509. It's about mathematical proportions, mysticism, and constructed geometric systems. Within this work, we are presented with a geometric construction of the Roman alphabet. 23 pages from this seminal work are dedicated to the alphabet, 1 page per letter. Here we're looking at a compilation of those pages. Authorship for the drawing of these letters have been argued since their inception. Why are these drawings of a Roman alphabet in a book about Renaissance mystic principles? Why are the drawings of the letterforms unattributed? To answer those questions, we will focus on 3 Renaissance philosophers, Pico della Mirandola, Johannes Reuchlin, and Cornelius Agrippa. We will look at their relationship to 3 artists who drew geometric Roman alphabets: Leonardo da Vinci, Albrecht Durer, and Geoffroy Tory. By considering the total milieu of the time and the relationship of these people to each other, we can assert that there was a theological purpose beyond the just shaping of letters. The School of Athens by Raphael, 1511, celebrates the shared community amongst Greek luminaries. Here we see a congregation of scholars from various backgrounds: Plato, Aristotle, Pythagoras, Archimedes. In the painting, portraits of Plato and Heraclitus are recognized as Michelangelo and Leonardo. Art historian Christiane Joyce-Gauguier believes Pico della Mirandola is portrayed twice in the painting as the figure cloaked in white to the upper right of Pythagoras, and the only figure whose back is to the viewer. This fantasy pretense of Renaissance scholars portraying Greek philosophers illustrates their desire to emulate this exceptional scene of a vibrant intellectual community. My point is simple. A community of scholarship was encouraged and supported during the Renaissance. Pico della Mirandola was a nobleman intellectual who was connected to the prominent families of Italy, the Sforzas of Milan, the Medicis of Florence, and the Estes of Ferrara. Pico's stature, personality, and familiarity with the Sforzas would have presented him with many opportunities to share his studies with Leonardo da Vinci, since da Vinci was employed and lived at the home of Lodovico Sforza for 17 years, from 1482 to 1499. It would be absurd to think that these 2 intellectuals, Pico and da Vinci, would not have known each other well. Here it seems they may have even shared the same portrait artist. Pico was interested in the Jewish Kabbalah, and evidently its ancient written account of the creation of the universe. This creationist story, based on the godly letters of the Hebrew alphabet, is called Sefer Yetzirah. A discourse between Pico and DaVinci would create a theological motive behind the efforts to investigate the geometry of the Roman alphabet. The ancient story of Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Creation, is one of the oldest Jewish texts, with a manuscript dating from circa 4th century AD, and has an oral tradition before that. As with many sacred texts, it has been studied and interpreted by great scholars. The same creationist story appears in the Zohar, a written account of the mostly oral Kabbalah. Breath from breath, with it he engraved and carved 22 foundation letters. 22 foundation letters, he engraved them, he carved them, he permuted them, he weighed them, he transformed them, and with them he depicted all that was formed and all that would be formed. The description of the Hebrew alphabet as divine is the true reason for the humanist search for properly proportioned letters. Pico argued that there was strong support of Catholic doctrine within early Jewish literature. His argument did not sway the Church. Pico was charged with heresy, but released when Lorenzo de' Medici came to his aid. His longtime friend, Savonarola, was hung and burned for heresy, more for his criticism of the morality of the Church than for its doctrine. Nonetheless, the accusation of heresy must have burned deeply in the psyche of Renaissance intellectuals. Pico is considered the father of the Christian Kabbalah. His influences impacted the courts of Florence and Ferrara, as well as the French royal court in Paris. Henry Cornelius Agrippa held lectures at the University of Dole on the work of Pico and Reuchlin. Agrippa faced growing hostility from Catholic orthodoxy at a time when anti-Jewish sentiment was reaching a crisis with Savonarola's burning of the Vanities, where Jewish books were being gathered up and destroyed. In 1509, Agrippa began drafts for his work, 3 Books of Occult Philosophy. Excerpts from this book clearly speak to his knowledge of Sefer Yetzirah and its alphabet-based creationist story. He reasons that all alphabets, not just the most sacred Hebrew alphabet, were designed by God. The divinity of the Roman alphabet was a definite humanist interest. Henry Cornelius Agrippa, 3 Books of Occult Philosophy, Chapter 74, titled, Of the Proportion, Correspondency, Reduction of Letters to the Celestial Signs and Planets according to Various Tongues. God hath, by his providence, divided the speech of men into diverse languages. The position of the stars being first made in the seat of God, which is heaven, after the figure of them are most fully formed letters of the celestial mysteries, as by their figure, form, and signification. Agrippa goes on to state that every nuance of a letter's shape was designed by God. Their simpleness, composition, separation, crookedness, directness, defect, abounding, greatness, littleness, crowning, opening, shutting, order, transmutation, joining together, revolution of letters, and of points and tops. A creationist story also exists within the Sufi tradition based on the Arabic alphabet. From the spoken letters, the world of spirits comes into being, and from the written letters, the sensory world comes into being, and from the summoned letters, the world of the intellect and the imagination comes into being. Ibn Arabi, 12th century. The written word of God, the cosmic script, and the art of Ibn Arabi, Dunja Rasik. Yet another alphabet-based creationist story comes from the Hindus and is based on the Sanskrit alphabet. The letters composing the Sanskrit languages are the phenomenal expression of finer forces, and by understanding them, one could discover the root vibration, the ineffable word, reverberating throughout the sentient world of visible nature, the Gupta Vidya, God, Nature, and Man, Raghaven, and Iyer. So what are these alphabets? The definition is very specific, It's a form of written communication whose symbols are abstractions. The abstract symbols represent specific vocal sounds. These sounds form into words. An alphabet is different from other forms of writing because its symbols are not a pictorial-based system such as hieroglyphics. The alphabet was developed in the Sinai region by the Phoenicians. Some say God gave Moses the alphabet. All alphabets emanated from an original source. I would think that since we find similar alphabet-based creationist stories in various cultures, the story would have belonged to the first alphabet, God's divine alphabet, and the story then spread with the alphabet's evolution and distribution. A century later, what seems to be poetics from Galileo about his view of the universe displays a knowledge of Sefer Yetzirah. The universe cannot be read until we have learnt the language and become familiar with the characters in which it is written. It is written in the mathematical language, and the letters are triangles, circles, and other geometrical figures, without which it is humanly impossible to comprehend a single word. Logically, there was motivation to examine the Roman letters and unlock their divine geometric puzzle. However, brutal trials of heresy had to influence the presentation of these alphabets. It is for this reason that the exploration of letterform, for the most part, was covertly categorized as instructional templates for the trades. Let's talk about Albrecht Durer and establish a relationship with Cornelius Agrippa. Durer's engraving, Melancholia, is filled with geometric imagery. Look at the magic square which is under the bell in the upper right corner of the print. It is essentially the same square found in Agrippa's book on occult philosophy. Durer changed Agrippa's square by rotating it on its head and interchanging the two inner columns. This playfulness transposed the inner numbers at the bottom of the square to read 1514, the date in which Durer created Melancholia. Donald Tyson, who edited and annotated Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy, states, "Since Agrippa and Durer were contemporary German intellectuals, it is reasonable to assume that they exchanged views on occult matters, especially as this was a passion of both." Durer's book, Of the Just Shaping of Letters, cloaks his occult knowledge as it relates to alphabetic form. In fact, this odd title clearly states that it is only a formalized instructional booklet for the trades to properly draw the Roman letters and nothing more. Perhaps Durer explains his reticence to share his mystic knowledge within the dedication of the book. Now, although in our time and amongst ourselves the art pictorial is in ill repute with some, as being held to minister incitement to idolatry, yet a Christian man is no more enticed to superstition by pictures or images than is an honest man girt with a sword to highway robbery. Evidently, Durer had as much concern with the Reformation in Northern Europe as Italian intellectuals had with the Pope. In my assessment, Durer flat out lied as to the purpose of his work, to protect himself. Geoffroy Tory, a patron to King Francis I, likely knew Pico Mirandola. Pico traveled to the University of Paris in 1485, a hotbed of theology and philosophy. Pico was later confined to the Chateau of Chambord as Lorenzo de' Medici fought to protect him from accusations of heresy. Pico was confined to the king's palace. Geoffroy Tory held the position of first printer at the palace. Leonardo da Vinci was first painter, engineer, and architect at the palace, possibly all of them at the same time. It certainly was an exciting and enlightening place. Tory was more open with his alphabetic ambitions than Durer or da Vinci. His book on the Roman alphabet, Fleury, clearly speaks to the relationship of the alphabet to the human body. As in Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, Geoffroy Tory is suggesting the relationship of not just letterform to human form, but through association with Da Vinci's drawing, the proportions of letterform to the cosmos. In this lecture, I've described the likely relationship between luminary artists and philosophers of the Renaissance. We know that these men were aware of an ancient creationist story based on the alphabet. It is clear that the study of alphabetic form was a search for the divine within the shape of letters. Plato allegedly had a sign above the entrance to his academy which read, "Let no one ignorant of geometry enter." Heeding Plato, my next lecture will begin with a very easy primer on the divine proportion, also known as the extreme to mean ratio. This simple lesson will lead to the application of the divine proportion to my work on the geometry of the Roman letters. Although simple, the lecture will remind us of all the wonders of geometry and the irrationality of the divine. Thank you for listening. I hope you follow me through this entire lecture series. Please visit my website at archetypegeometry.com. Be well.